Japan has long abandoned its pacifism. Now it is also abandoning its defense expenditure cap as Tokyo prepares to spend big on its military. While China has a lot to fear out of the recent Japanese move, the Biden administration faces the prospect of turning the United States into an insignificant entity in the East China Sea. More than China, Japan's move to hike its defense budget way over the 1% of GDP cap has a bearing on Tokyo's dependence on the United States. Hi and welcome. This is TFI Global, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. I am your host Sanbir Ranhotra, and in this video I will explain to you how Japan is growing independent of the United States as it prepares to take on China. Let's begin. In a historic move which is bound to scare China to its meek bones, Japanese Defense Minister Nobuo Kishi has announced that his country will be hiking its military budget, notwithstanding the 1% share of GDP cap which Japan has strictly adhered to. What this means is that Japan will now be breaching the 1% of GDP cap, which it has put on itself in terms of defense spending. This would allow Tokyo to tremendously bolster its defense capabilities, although Nobuo Kishi also mentioned that the focus would also be towards increasing Japan's offensive capabilities. Since the 1990s, Japan has kept its defense spending below 1% of its GDP. With the defense minister now saying that the 1% of GDP cap will no longer be paid heed to, Japan has effectively sent across a signal to not just China, but also Joe Biden. Speaking to Nikkei Asia, the Japanese defense minister said, "We must increase our defense capabilities at a radically different pace than in the past, considering China's increased capabilities as well as new areas of warfare such as space, cyber, and electromagnetics." Nobuo Kishi was also quoted as saying, "We will properly allocate the funding we need to protect our nation without considering outlays in relation to GDP." Since the 1990s, the only one year that Japan's defense spending exceeded 1% of GDP was fiscal 2010, when GDP plummeted after the global financial crisis. According to the Nikkei, Japan's defense budget has grown for 9 straight years through fiscal 2021. But has remained below 1% of the GDP. The intentional breaching of the 1% mark is being called a turning point for Japan's security policy. While the move will most definitely irk China and help Japan bolster its defense capabilities in face of growing Chinese belligerence in the East China Sea and the South China Sea, the announcement of increasing Japan's defense spending by leaps and bounds will also be a message to the Biden administration that Tokyo is going to stand on its feet to defend itself and not depend on the United States. A clear indicator of Japan's discomfort with its dependence on the United States for its defense was given by Nobuo Kishi when he told Nikkei Asia that Japan, by hiking its defense spending over the 1% GDP share mark, will seek to strengthen its capabilities on the Nansei Islands. The Nansei Island chain stretches from the southernmost tip of Kyushu to the north of Taiwan and consists of small islands like Osumi, Tokara, Amami, Okinawa, Miyako, and Yaeyama. The Nansei Island chain is absolutely crucial for Japan to heavily militarize, since they are to be used in the defense of not just the Senkaku Islands, but also the Miyako Strait and subsequently the protection of Taiwan. Although the United States of America has a military base at Okinawa, which forms a part of the Nansei Island chain, the Biden administration has been looking to disperse its troops across the Indo-Pacific, which would mean pulling out boots from Okinawa. Therefore, at a time when Joe Biden is actively trying to pull out American troops from Okinawa, Japan has realized that it must spend much more on its military in order to defend itself independently. Apart from inevitably hiking Japan's defense spending, Nobuo Kishi also pushed for a Quad defense ministers' meet soon. It must be remembered that Joe Biden has been trying to dilute Quad with his climate vigilantism and non-China specific issues. At such a time, Japan's push for a Quad meet when it is about to hike its defense budget indeed comes as a direct message to the Biden administration. Japan's last defense budget witnessed a record high of worth $51.7 billion and was aimed at overpowering China. And Japan isn't just going to produce conventional weapons, it is going to develop a remote-controlled, pilotless aircraft ready for deployment by 2035. Japan will also invest heavily in making its offensive military capabilities independent of direct human involvement, which will allow the country to take on China without having to lose precious lives. At a time when Joe Biden is giving China a free pass to do as it fancies, Japan under Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga is fundamentally changing its security outlook. The message to the Biden administration is clear. Japan is readying its capabilities to take on China alone, if that situation were to ever arise.